From child stars to headline makers, these icons have transformed in ways you won't believe. Dakota Fanning, now celebrated for her riveting role in Ripley, stunned audiences alongside her sister, Elle, who earned acclaim with sentimental value and continues to dominate red carpets. Abigail Breslin has stepped into indie brilliance with A Good Fight, while Chloe Grace Moretz made waves by marrying longtime partner Kate Harrison in a dazzling Louis Vuitton ceremony, and Jenna Ortega, fresh off Beetlejuice 2 and a gripping thriller with Barry Keoghan, remains the face of reinvention. Take a deep breath. Paradise has changed. Do you remember Dakota Fanning? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Dakota Fanning first stunned audiences before she could even spell blockbuster. Born on February 23, 1994, she became one of the youngest stars ever to command genuine critical respect, earning a Screen Actors Guild nomination at just 8 years old for I Am Sam, 2001, opposite Sean Penn. That moment alone rewired how Hollywood viewed child actors. Through the 2000s, she stacked roles that were far too emotionally complex for her age. Man on Fire, War of the Worlds, Charlotte's Web, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, often acting alongside Oscar winners while never being overshadowed. Unlike many former child stars, Fanning didn't disappear to survive adulthood. She recalibrated. She attended New York University's Gallatin School, studying women's studies with a focus on representation in film, while deliberately choosing indie projects and limited series. By the late 2010s and early 2020s, she quietly rebuilt her screen identity with layered adult performances in The Alienist, Please Stand By, and Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she played a sharp, meta version of herself as a member of the Manson-era Hollywood crowd. In 2024 and 2025, she continued balancing prestige television with film production work, increasingly stepping behind the camera through her production company, Llewellyn Pictures. What hits hardest now isn't just how grown she looks, it's how intelligently she escaped the usual child star narrative. Dakota Fanning didn't burn out, spiral, or rely on nostalgia. She evolved, methodically, into a performer who understands the business as deeply as the craft. That's not a glow-up, it's a long game, expertly played. Do you remember Elle Fanning? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Elle Fanning began her career in the most low-key way possible, by playing the younger version of her already famous sister in I Am Sam, 2001. But very quickly, Elle proved she wasn't a shadow act. Born on April 9, 1998, she grew up in front of the camera, yet her choices always leaned toward the unexpected. As a child and teen, she took on emotionally heavy roles in Phoebe in Wonderland, Somewhere, which won the Golden Lion at Venice, and Super 8, quietly building a resume that critics, not just audiences, paid attention to. Nerdy side note, Sofia Coppola has openly said she cast Elle in Somewhere based almost entirely on instinct. The real shift came in the mid to late 2010s when Fanning leaned into bold, sometimes polarizing projects. Nicholas Winding Refn's The Neon Demon turned her into a fashion world symbol overnight, while 20th Century Women cemented her credibility as a serious dramatic actor. Then came Maleficent, where she reframed Princess Aurora with surprising emotional restraint, no easy feat in a Disney blockbuster. From 2020 onward, her transformation became impossible to ignore. As Catherine the Great in Hulu's The Great, Fanning balanced razor-sharp satire with genuine historical tragedy, earning multiple Emmy and Golden Globe nominations and redefining how period drama leads are written. By 2025, Elle Fanning isn't just grown up, she's influential. She's a Cannes Film Festival jury member, alum, a fashion house favorite, and a producer increasingly shaping her own projects. What people take a deep breath over now isn't just her elegance, it's the realization that she's quietly become one of her generation's most versatile and strategically intelligent actors. Do you remember Abigail Breslin? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Abigail Breslin became a household name before most kids learned long division. Born on April 14, 1996, she detonated onto the Hollywood radar with Little Miss Sunshine, 2006, earning an Academy Award nomination at just 10 years old. still one of the youngest nominees in Oscar history for Best Supporting Actress. That performance wasn't cute kid acting. Critics praised her razor-sharp comic timing and emotional control, especially during the film's famously awkward beauty pageant finale. Hollywood quickly realized Breslin wasn't a one-hit child prodigy. She followed it up with genre-hopping roles in Signs, Nim's Island, My Sister's Keeper, and Zombieland, where her deadpan delivery became one of the franchise's secret weapons. The transition to adulthood, however, is where Breslin's story gets more complex and more impressive. Instead of chasing glossy leading lady roles, she leaned into darker, stranger material. By the late 2010s and early 2020s, she was headlining Scream Queens, tackling horror comedy with surgical precision, and later starring in films that explored trauma, addiction, and identity. Off-screen, Breslin became outspoken about body image, Hollywood pressure, and survival after publicly sharing her experience with sexual assault, statements that were widely covered and verified, and which reframed her as a serious advocate rather than a former child star clinging to relevance. As of 2025, Breslin continues acting across film, television, and stage, while also releasing music and producing select projects. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how grown she looks, it's how deliberately she shaped her career. Abigail Breslin didn't outgrow Hollywood, she confronted it, adapted, and stayed standing. That's a transformation far rarer than fame itself. Do you remember Chloe Grace Moretz? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Chloe Grace Moretz didn't enter Hollywood quietly. She kicked the door down. Born on February 10, 1997, Moretz began acting professionally before her teens, but it was Kick-Ass, 2010, that permanently rewired her public image. As Hit Girl, she delivered profanity-laced, hyper-violent dialogue with shocking precision, instantly becoming one of the most talked-about child performances of the decade. The role wasn't a fluke. Around the same time, she impressed critics in Let Me In, a restrained and unsettling remake of Let the Right One In, proving she could handle emotional subtlety just as well as explosive action. Nerdy industry note: directors repeatedly praised her discipline on set, noting she trained extensively in martial arts and weapons choreography despite her age. As she grew older, Moretz made a deliberate effort to avoid being boxed into one genre. She balanced mainstream films like Hugo, directed by Martin Scorsese, with darker projects such as Carrie and socially conscious dramas including If I Stay. By the late 2010s, she stepped back slightly from blockbuster exposure, later explaining she wanted to reassess her relationship with fame and choose roles with more control. That pause paid off. In the 2020s, she returned with sharper boundaries and stronger creative input, starring in Amazon's sci-fi series The Peripheral, where she also served as an executive producer, an increasingly common move for actors intent on shaping narratives, not just starring in them. As of 2025, Chloe Grace Moretz is no longer defined by the shock value of her early roles. She's a politically outspoken advocate, a producer, and a performer who survived one of the harshest transitions in Hollywood, growing up under a microscope. What makes people take a breath now isn't just her transformation. It's realizing she made it to adulthood on her own terms, something the industry rarely allows. Do you remember Jenny Ortega? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Jenny Ortega didn't arrive as an overnight sensation. She built her rise brick by brick. Born on September 27, 2002, Ortega began acting professionally as a child, appearing in projects like Jane the Virgin and Disney Channel's Stuck in the Middle. Even then, industry insiders noticed something different. Her performances leaned toward grounded realism rather than exaggerated kid-friendly theatrics. That instinct paid off as she grew older and deliberately pivoted away from the Disney pipeline, choosing darker, riskier material that most young actors avoid during transition years. The real turning point came in the early 2020s when Ortega quietly became a modern horror powerhouse. She starred in X 2022, Scream 2022, and Scream 6 2023, earning the unofficial title of Gen Z Scream Queen while subverting it with sharp, emotionally controlled performances. Nerdy trivia moment: Ortega reportedly performed the now iconic Wednesday dance scene while sick with COVID, something later confirmed by production and Disney executives, sparking conversations about on-set labor standards. She became an executive producer on select projects, publicly pushed back against poorly written scripts, and gained a reputation for advocating authenticity over algorithm-driven storytelling. Fashion houses, film festivals, and studios now treat her less like a young star and more like a cultural decision-maker. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown. It's realizing Jenny Ortega didn't just survive the child actor transition, she mastered it and then rewrote the rules. Do you remember Bailee Madison? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Bailee Madison grew up on screen in a way that felt quietly inevitable. Born on October 15, 1999, Madison began acting before most kids start elementary school, but it was Bridge to Terabithia, 2007, that etched her into pop culture memory. Playing the younger sister of Josh Hutcherson's character, she delivered a performance that balanced innocence with emotional weight. No small feat in a story built around loss and imagination. From there, she became Hollywood's go-to, emotionally credible child, appearing in projects like Brothers, Just Go With It, and Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Nerdy industry detail, directors frequently cited her ability to hit complex emotional beats in single takes, something usually expected from far more seasoned actors. Instead of chasing blockbuster superstardom, Madison made a strategic pivot toward long-form storytelling. In the 2010s, she became the emotional anchor of Hallmark's Good Witch franchise, portraying Grace Russell across multiple films and a long-running television series. While Hallmark doesn't scream career evolution, the role gave her something rare for young actors: stability, audience loyalty, and creative breathing room during formative years. Behind the scenes, she also co-founded a production company and began advocating for young performers' mental health and creative agency. As of 2025, Bailee Madison has fully transitioned into adult roles across television, independent film, and producing, while maintaining a clean break from the former child star meltdown narrative. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown. It's realizing she played the long game perfectly. Bailee Madison didn't rush fame. She curated longevity, and that may be the smartest transformation of all. Do you remember Alyson Stoner? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Alyson Stoner was one of those rare child performers who seemed to be everywhere at once, and genuinely good at all of it. Born on August 11, 1993, Stoner first grabbed attention not through acting, but through dance, becoming a standout performer in Missy Elliott's music videos in the early 2000s. That exposure quickly translated into film and television, where audiences recognized them from Cheaper by the Dozen, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and Disney's Camp Rock franchise. Nerdy industry trivia, Stoner is one of the few Disney-era performers who simultaneously worked across dance, acting, voice acting, and music without being tied to a single brand persona. As they transitioned out of child stardom, Stoner took a path far less visible, but far more intentional. Instead of chasing constant screen time, they stepped back to address mental health challenges, later speaking openly about eating disorders, burnout, and the psychological cost of growing up in entertainment. Their 2018 and 2021 essays on child labor in Hollywood were widely cited and praised for being detailed, measured, and rooted in first-hand experience rather than shock value. Meanwhile, Stoner continued working steadily, voice acting in Pixar's Cars franchise, performing in the Step Up films, releasing independent music, and developing dance-focused creative projects. By 2025, Alyson Stoner is no longer remembered simply as a former Disney kid. She is an advocate, choreographer, musician, and thinker who helped push overdue conversations about performer welfare into the mainstream. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how she looks. It's realizing she survived an intense childhood spotlight and came out articulate, principled, and still creatively sharp. Do you remember Madison Pettis? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Madison Pettis was one of those child stars everyone recognized instantly, even if they didn't remember her name at first. Born on July 22, 1998, Pettis broke through playing Sophie Martinez on Disney Channel's Cory in the House, where her natural comic timing made her a standout in a show built around fast-paced humor. Around the same time, she appeared opposite Dwayne Johnson in The Game Plan, 2007, holding her own against one of Hollywood's most dominant screen personalities. As she grew older, Pettis made a conscious decision not to cling to the Disney mold. Instead, she pivoted toward teen dramas, streaming-era projects, and voice acting, gradually reshaping her public image. She appeared in shows like The Fosters and Life with Boys, while also lending her voice to animated projects such as Jake and the Neverland Pirates. By the late 2010s and early 2020s, Pettis became equally known for her off-screen presence, using social media to speak openly about colorism in Hollywood, beauty standards, and representation, conversations that were widely discussed and grounded in her lived experience as a former child actor of mixed heritage. As of 2025, Madison Pettis continues working across film, television, and digital media, balancing acting with brand collaborations and advocacy. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown, it's realizing she successfully navigated the most dangerous phase of child stardom. Pettis didn't vanish, implode, or live off nostalgia. She adapted, evolved, and quietly stayed relevant in an industry that rarely makes room for smooth transitions. Do you remember AnnaSophia Robb? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. AnnaSophia Robb arrived in Hollywood with a resume most adults would envy. Born on December 8, 1993, Robb broke out almost back-to-back in two wildly different fantasy worlds, Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, where she played the fiercely competitive Violet Beauregarde, and Bridge to Terabithia, 2007, a film that quietly traumatized an entire generation of young viewers. Her performance in Terabithia stood out not because it was loud or flashy, but because of its emotional restraint, something critics consistently pointed out as unusually mature for her age. Nerdy casting note, she was selected from thousands of auditions, largely because she could convey grief without overplaying it. Instead of leaning into constant blockbuster visibility, Robb took a more academic and intentional path. In the 2010s, she returned with a defining role as young Carrie Bradshaw in The Carrie Diaries, a risky prequel concept that worked largely because of her grounded performance. Later, she transitioned into socially driven and politically themed projects, including roles in The Act, Dr. Death, and series tackling systemic power, media, and morality. By 2025, AnnaSophia Robb has evolved into a performer known for intelligence-first choices rather than nostalgia. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just her transformation. It's realizing she avoided the child star crash entirely by choosing growth over noise. In Hollywood terms, that's almost a magic trick. Do you remember Mackenzie Foy? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Mackenzie Foy entered pop culture at full speed. Born on November 10, 2000, she was already modeling for major fashion houses before most kids finished elementary school, but global recognition arrived with The Twilight Saga: Breaking Dawn Part 2, 2012, as Renesmee Cullen. While the role came with franchise-level attention, industry insiders noticed something else. She handled press, long shoots, and intense fan scrutiny with unusual composure for a 12-year-old. Nerdy behind-the-scenes note, her casting required extensive visual effects coordination, meaning she often performed scenes designed to be digitally altered later, a technical challenge rarely placed on actors that young. Rather than leaning into the franchise fame, Foy made one of the smartest pivots of any child actor of her era. In Interstellar, 2014, she played the young Murph opposite Matthew McConaughey, delivering emotionally grounded scenes that anchored Christopher Nolan's time-bending epic. After that, Foy slowed down intentionally, choosing selective roles over constant visibility, including Disney's The Nutcracker and The Four Realms, and the lead in Black Beauty, 2020, where she also emphasized animal welfare advocacy during promotion. As of 2025, Mackenzie Foy has fully transitioned into adult roles while maintaining a low-profile, craft-first approach. She balances acting with creative interests outside Hollywood's spotlight, avoiding the burnout pipeline that derails many former child stars. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown. It's realizing she stepped away from the noise early and protected her trajectory. In an industry obsessed with speed, Mackenzie Foy chose precision, and that choice is paying off. Do you remember Sky Jackson? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Sky Jackson was already a working professional before most kids learned stage directions. Born on April 8, 2002, Jackson began modeling and acting as a toddler, appearing in films like Liberty Kid and The Rebound. But it was Disney Channel's Jessie, 2011 to 2015, that turned her into a global face, with her sharp-tongued, scene-stealing performance as Zuri Ross. Nerdy sitcom trivia: Zuri was originally written as a lighter background character, but Jackson's timing and delivery expanded the role, keeping her central through Jessie and its spin-off, Punk'd. What makes Jackson's evolution especially notable is how deliberately she stepped outside the Disney freeze frame. In the late 2010s and early 2020s, she leaned into public-facing work that didn't rely on acting alone. She competed on Dancing with the Stars in 2020, showcasing discipline and work ethic more than spectacle, and published a young adult book, Reach for the Sky, aimed at self-confidence and resilience, firmly positioning herself as a young role model for younger audiences. At the same time, she became vocal about online accountability, digital safety, and representation, topics that define Gen Z celebrity culture rather than tabloid drama. As of 2025, Sky Jackson continues acting selectively while expanding her presence in fashion, publishing, and advocacy. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown, it's how confidently she's carried herself through one of the toughest pipelines in entertainment. Sky Jackson didn't outgrow her childhood fame, she outpaced it, reshaping it into something controlled, intentional, and very much her own. Do you remember Rowan Blanchard? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Rowan Blanchard was never just another Disney Channel face, and that difference showed early. Born on October 14, 2001, Blanchard rose to mainstream recognition as Riley Matthews on Girl Meets World 2014 to 2017, a sequel series to Boy Meets World. While the show leaned nostalgic, her performance stood out for its emotional curiosity and moral seriousness, often anchoring episodes about identity, ethics, and growing up in a changing world. Nerdy behind-the-scenes note: several storylines tackling feminism and social responsibility were shaped in collaboration with writers who knew Blanchard was already deeply engaged with those topics off-screen. What separated her from the usual child star trajectory was how seamlessly she blended activism, intellect, and art. As a teenager, Blanchard became widely known for her writing and public speaking on feminism, LGBTQ+ rights, and intersectionality, contributing essays to major publications and appearing at global forums. Importantly, this wasn't a rebrand invented by a PR team. Her advocacy was consistently documented, researched, and often ahead of mainstream industry conversations. She later transitioned into more mature roles, including recurring appearances on TNT's Snowpiercer, where she explored darker, politically charged storytelling far removed from her Disney roots. By 2025, Rowan Blanchard has evolved into a multidisciplinary creative, balancing acting, writing, fashion, and cultural commentary with unusual coherence. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just her transformation from child actor to adult, it's realizing she was always operating on a different frequency. Rowan Blanchard didn't grow out of her childhood fame. She intellectually outgrew the box it tried to put her in and then built something far more lasting in its place. Do you remember Emily Osment? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Emily Osment grew up in one of the most visible pipelines of 2000s pop culture and somehow came out on the other side intact. Born on March 10, 1992, Osment entered acting early, appearing in projects like Spy Kids 2 and Spy Kids 3D, but global recognition arrived when she played Lily Trescott on Disney Channel's Hannah Montana. While Miley Cyrus carried the spotlight, Osment's hyperverbal, emotionally loyal best friend became the show's comedic engine. Instead of staying locked into Disney's branding machine, Osment pivoted aggressively in the early 2010s. She headlined Cyberbully, 2011, a TV film that tackled online harassment years before it became a mainstream media focus, earning praise for portraying psychological distress without melodrama. She also pursued music seriously, releasing multiple EPs and a full-length album that leaned pop rock rather than Disney polish. As television evolved, Osment found her strongest footing in ensemble comedy, starring in Young and Hungry and later joining Young Sheldon as Mandy McAllister, a role that reintroduced her to a new generation and showcased sharper adult comedic timing. By 2025, Emily Osment is firmly established as a working adult actor with longevity rather than nostalgia appeal. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown, it's realizing she quietly engineered one of the cleanest transitions out of child stardom. No scandals, no vanishing act, just consistent work, smart pivots, and a career built to last. Do you remember Joey King? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Joey King was one of those child actors who never stopped working and never stopped evolving. Born on July 30th, 1999, King began acting before she was 10, appearing in commercials and early film roles, but widespread recognition came with projects like Ramona and Bezos, 2010, where her fearless emotional range stole scenes from much older co-stars. From the start, casting directors noticed her willingness to go all in, whether that meant slapstick comedy or raw vulnerability. Playing Gypsy Rose Blanchard, King underwent a full physical transformation, including shaving her head, and delivered a performance so controlled and unsettling that it earned her an Emmy nomination. The role permanently shattered any lingering child star label. She followed it with mainstream success in Netflix's The Kissing Booth trilogy, balancing heavy dramatic work with pop culture visibility, a rare dual-track strategy that expanded her audience without diluting credibility. By the early 2020s, she was also stepping into high-budget action with Bullet Train, proving she could hold her own in ensemble blockbusters. As of 2025, Joey King is firmly positioned as both a leading actress and a producer, using her influence to shape projects rather than just star in them. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how grown she looks, it's realizing she executed one of Hollywood's hardest feats, growing up in public while continuously raising the stakes of her craft. Joey King didn't reinvent herself once, she kept upgrading. Do you remember Alexa Penavega? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Alexa Penavega became a defining face of early 2000s family cinema almost overnight. Born on August 27, 1988, she shot to global fame as Carmen Cortez in Robert Rodriguez's Spy Kids franchise, a series that blended kid-friendly adventure with cutting-edge digital effects for its time. Nerdy behind-the-scenes detail? Spy Kids used then groundbreaking green screen techniques, meaning much of Alexa's performance relied on imagination and timing rather than physical sets. As the franchise wrapped, Penavega faced the same crossroads as many former child stars, but chose a quieter, more strategic path. She transitioned into music, releasing a pop album, then shifted toward television films, theater, and reality competition. Her appearances on Dancing with the Stars highlighted her discipline and athleticism, traits that longtime fans hadn't fully seen during her action-heavy childhood roles. In the 2010s, she reestablished herself as a consistent presence in television movies, particularly within the Hallmark ecosystem, where long-form storytelling and character continuity offered creative stability rather than tabloid exposure. By 2025, Alexa Penavega balances acting, producing, family life, and public faith-based advocacy while remaining active in entertainment on her own terms. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown, it's realizing she successfully stepped off the child star treadmill without derailing her career. Alexa Penavega didn't chase reinvention through shock value. She chose longevity, adaptability, and control, an outcome far rarer than fame itself. Do you remember Peyton List? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Peyton List didn't stumble into fame, she grew up inside it. Born on April 6, 1998, List started as a child model before transitioning into acting, appearing in films like 27 Dresses and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. But it was Disney Channel's Jessie, 2011 to 2015, that made her instantly recognizable as Emma Ross, the stylish, sharp-tongued eldest sibling. Unlike many Disney alumni, List didn't rush a dramatic image overhaul. Instead, she pivoted patiently. She took on darker, more character-driven roles in thrillers like The Thinning and Light as a Feather, testing genre boundaries while distancing herself from child-centric branding. The real career recalibration came with Netflix's Cobra Kai, where she joined the cast as Tori Nichols. The role demanded physical intensity, emotional volatility, and moral ambiguity, qualities far removed from her Disney past. Critics and fans alike noted how convincingly she handled the show's brutal fight choreography while grounding Tori's aggression in psychological realism. As of 2025, Peyton List stands as a textbook example of a successful child-to-adult transition done slowly and intelligently. She balances acting with producing, fashion partnerships, and selective public visibility, avoiding the burnout loop that traps many former child stars. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how grown she looks, it's realizing she engineered her evolution with patience and precision. In an industry obsessed with reinvention, Peyton List chose refinement, and it worked. Do you remember Isabella Merced? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Isabella Merced didn't grow up in Hollywood so much as accelerate through it with purpose. Born on July 10, 2001, she first broke out on Nickelodeon's 100 Things to Do Before High School, but mainstream audiences really noticed her when she stepped into a role many assumed was impossible to modernize, Dora, in Dora and the Lost City of Gold, 2019. Instead of leaning into nostalgia, Merced grounded the character with self-awareness and sincerity, earning praise for making a children's icon work in a live-action, self-referential format. Nerdy industry note: the film's success hinged on tone, and Merced's performance was repeatedly cited as the reason it didn't collapse into parody. What followed wasn't typecasting, it was range. She held her own opposite Mark Wahlberg and Rose Byrne in Instant Family, voiced a lead character in Spirit Untamed, and steadily transitioned into more mature, physically demanding roles. By the mid-2020s, her career took a sharp, high-profile turn. She appeared in Sony's Madam Web, 2024, and then landed a key role in Alien Romulus, 2024, joining one of cinema's most scrutinized sci-fi franchises. No small task for a former child star. In 2025, she reached a new level of cultural relevance by starring as Dinah in HBO's The Last of Us Season 2, a casting choice closely watched by fans of the game and widely discussed for its emotional accuracy. As of 2025, Isabella Merced is no longer framed as a former kid actor. She's a multilingual performer, a recording artist, releasing music under her own name, and a franchise-level actress navigating prestige television and blockbuster cinema at once. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much she's grown. It's realizing she crossed into adulthood without losing momentum, credibility, or control. Do you remember Caitlin Mayer? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Caitlin Mayer first entered the public eye at an age when most children are still learning stage confidence. 6. Born on January 10, 2004, Mayer became a national sensation on America's Got Talent in 2009, where her powerful, classically trained voice shocked both judges and viewers. She didn't win the competition, but she did something arguably more important. She launched a legitimate professional career. Shortly after, she signed with a major label and released her debut album, You Were Meant for Me, making her one of the youngest artists ever to do so in modern pop-classical crossover space. Nerdy music detail: Mayer frequently performed operatic and traditional standards, material far more demanding than typical child pop, requiring vocal control uncommon at that age. Hollywood followed quickly. She appeared in The Search for Santa Paws, 2010, the Pup Star series, and Freebirds, 2013 voice. Album You Were Meant to Be, sharing scenes in a massive ensemble cast while still balancing live performances and recording schedules. Unlike many child performers who are pushed aggressively into constant visibility, Mayer's career took a more measured path. As she entered her teens, she gradually stepped back from mainstream entertainment to focus on education and personal development, a choice confirmed through public interviews and appearances rather than speculation. As of 2025, Caitlin Mayer is no longer a tabloid fixture, and that's precisely the point. She has continued music and creative work selectively while prioritizing life outside the spotlight. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't a shocking reinvention or viral comeback. It's realizing she avoided the pressure cooker fate so many prodigies face. Caitlin Mayer didn't disappear. She matured quietly, choosing stability over spectacle, and that may be the most successful transition of all. Do you remember Haley Joel Osment? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Haley Joel Osment wasn't just a famous child star. He was a cultural event. Born on April 10, 1988, Osment permanently embedded himself in film history with The Sixth Sense, 1999, delivering the now legendary "I see dead people" line with chilling restraint. That performance earned him an Academy Award nomination at just 11 years old, making him one of the youngest nominees ever in an acting category. What often gets overlooked is how technically precise his acting was. Director M. Night Shyamalan has repeatedly emphasized that Osment understood subtext and pacing at a level far beyond his years. Instead of being crushed by that early peak, Osment doubled down on craft-heavy roles. Steven Spielberg cast him as the lead in AI, Artificial Intelligence, 2001, a film that required Osment to carry complex philosophical themes, identity, abandonment, artificial consciousness, almost entirely on his own. He continued working steadily through adolescence, then made a rare but smart decision. He stepped back. Osment studied theater at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, choosing education over chasing relevance. By the 2010s and into 2025, Osment reemerged not as a nostalgia act, but as a character actor with sharp comedic instincts, appearing in Silicon Valley, The Boys, and Future Man, and voice roles in major franchises like Kingdom Hearts. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't shock, it's respect. Haley Joel Osment didn't try to outrun his legacy. He absorbed it, evolved, and turned one of the most dangerous child star trajectories into a long, credible acting career. Do you remember Noah Schnapp? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Noah Schnapp didn't explode on the screens with loud heroics. He crept in quietly and stayed with you. Born on October 3, 2004, Schnapp became globally recognizable as Will Byers on Netflix's Stranger Things, a role that required sustained vulnerability rather than spectacle. From the show's first season, critics singled out his ability to convey fear, grief, and emotional isolation with minimal dialogue. Nerdy acting note: the series creators, the Duffy brothers, have said Will's arc demanded a child actor who could hold silence, a skill Schnapp demonstrated repeatedly across seasons as the character shifted from victim to emotional linchpin. As the series grew into a cultural juggernaut, Schnapp resisted being swallowed by it. He continued acting, appearing in films like Bridge of Spies early on, and voice roles such as Charlie Brown in the Peanuts movie. But he also made a conscious pivot toward education and business. In 2023, he enrolled at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, one of the most competitive business programs, a move that surprised fans but signaled long-term thinking beyond Hollywood. At the same time, he launched and expanded food and consumer ventures, leaning into entrepreneurship rather than constant on-screen exposure. By 2025, with Stranger Things concluded, Schnapp stands at a rare crossroads, a former child actor exiting one of the biggest shows in television history without scrambling for reinvention. He continues acting selectively, maintains a strong presence in fashion and brand collaborations, and speaks openly about growth, pressure, and identity with a maturity that feels earned rather than curated. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how grown he looks, It's realizing Noah Schnapp didn't just survive global fame as a kid, he positioned himself to outgrow it. Do you remember Gaten Matarazzo? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Gaten Matarazzo never played the quiet child, and that's exactly why audiences locked onto him. Born on September 8, 2002, Matarazzo became instantly recognizable as Dustin Henderson on Netflix's Stranger Things, where his rapid-fire humor, emotional sincerity, and unmistakable grin made him one of the show's breakout stars. What many viewers didn't realize at first is that his performance wasn't just comedic instinct, it was theatrical training. Long before Stranger Things, Matarazzo was a Broadway kid, appearing in Les Miserables and later Dear Evan Hansen, giving him vocal control and stage discipline that translated seamlessly to screen work. Nerdy casting detail: the Duffer Brothers have acknowledged that Dustin's dialogue and comedic rhythm evolved specifically to fit Matarazzo's natural delivery. As the series exploded into a global phenomenon, Matarazzo became something rare in child stardom, a fan favorite without controversy. He used that visibility to openly discuss living with cleidocranial dysplasia, a genetic condition affecting bone and dental development, helping normalize conversations around difference and disability in mainstream media. At the same time, he continued balancing screen acting with music and live performance, fronting his band and hosting Netflix's Prank Encounters, which showcased his improvisational instincts beyond scripted drama. By 2025, with Stranger Things behind him, Gaten Matarazzo has transitioned into adulthood without losing the warmth that defined his early fame. He continues acting, performing music, and working across stage and screen with a reputation for professionalism and humility. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't shock or reinvention, it's realization. Gaten Matarazzo didn't grow out of his charm, he refined it, turning childhood likability into something far more durable: respect. Do you remember Freddie Highmore? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Freddie Highmore didn't just impress as a child, he intimidated seasoned professionals with how good he was. Born on February 14, 1992, Highmore broke through internationally with Finding Neverland, 2004, where his emotionally precise performance opposite Johnny Depp earned him a Critics' Choice Movie Award and immediate industry credibility. Steven Spielberg followed by casting him in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, and within a few years, Highmore became the rare child actor trusted to carry entire films, including August Rush. Nerdy industry note: directors often cited his ability to internalize emotion rather than perform it, a technique more associated with method-trained adults. What truly separates Highmore from nearly every child star of his generation is how deliberately he built his adulthood. He attended Emmanuel College, Cambridge, studying Spanish and Arabic, graduating with top academic honors. At the same time, most former child actors were scrambling to redefine themselves. He then returned to screen work with Bates Motel, delivering a chilling, layered portrayal of Norman Bates that earned critical acclaim and proved his range extended far beyond childhood innocence. By the time he led The Good Doctor, Highmore wasn't just acting. He was producing, writing episodes, and shaping long-form storytelling behind the camera. As of 2025, Freddie Highmore stands as one of the cleanest success stories in modern entertainment. He remains selective, private, and deeply craft-focused, balancing global fame with intellectual rigor. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't just how much he's grown, it's realizing he did something almost impossible in Hollywood. Freddie Highmore didn't escape the child actor curse by accident. He outplanned it. Do you remember Thomas Brodie Sangster? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Thomas Brodie Sangster may be one of the most quietly recognizable faces in modern film and TV, even if you'd forgotten his name for a hot second. Born on May 16, 1990, he first captured hearts as Sam in Love Actually, 2003, delivering one of the most charmingly awkward first kiss scenes in romantic comedy history long before most actors even had their first headshot. From there, he became a reliable presence in Family and Fantasy Fair, Nanny McPhee, The Last Legion, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, often balancing physical humor with surprising emotional nuance for someone still in his early teens. Unlike many child actors who fade or implode in the transition to adulthood, Brody Sangster engineered one of the smoothest pivots you'll find. Nerdy franchise trivia: he voiced Ferb in the U.S. version of Phineas and Ferb, bringing dry wit to a character defined entirely by controlled silence, no small feat for a voice actor. As he matured, his roles shifted to complex ensemble work. Most fans know him as Jojen Reed in Game of Thrones, where he played a mystically attuned young brother, and as Benny Watts in Netflix's The Queen's Gambit, delivering razor-sharp intensity opposite Anya Taylor-Joy in one of streaming's most acclaimed dramas. As of 2025, Thomas Brody Sangster continues building a career defined by smart choices rather than tabloid spectacle. He appears in a steady mix of film, television, and voice work, bringing a grounded intelligence to every role. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't some dramatic glow-up. It's realizing they never needed one. Brody Sangster simply kept working, evolved naturally, and became one of the rare child actors whose adult career feels like an organic extension rather than a reinvention. Do you remember Jonathan Lipnicki? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Jonathan Lipnicki was one of the most unforgettable child stars of the late 1990s and early 2000s, literally. Born on January 22, 1990, he became a household name almost instantly with his decisive breakout role as the adorable yet outspoken George in Jerry Maguire, 1996. That role wasn't a one-off. He followed it with family favorites like Stuart Little and The Little Vampire, where his charm and comedic instincts carried films aimed squarely at broad audiences. The tricky part for many child actors is the breakout phase that comes next, and this is where Jonathan's story diverges thoughtfully from many of his peers. Instead of simply riding nostalgia or chasing the stereotype of grown-up roles, he diversified his life and career. He continued acting steadily through adolescence and early adulthood in independent films, genre projects, and voiceover roles, while also prioritizing education and personal growth. He's a trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, earning multiple belts, and has competed at high levels in martial arts, often talking in interviews about how that discipline grounded him outside of Hollywood's spotlight. By the 2020s, Lipnicki has shifted into a blend of selective acting, producing, and fitness advocacy, showing that a childhood in fame doesn't have to shrink into obscurity or scandal. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't a dramatic makeover or tabloid-fueled headline. It's the realization that Jonathan Lipnicki grew up, stayed balanced, and built a life that isn't defined by being the cute kid anymore. He's still creative, focused, and grounded, proof that some child stars don't just survive Hollywood, they outgrow it with intention. Do you remember Logan Lerman? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Logan Lerman has been one of those rare performers whose evolution feels less like, where did he go, and more like, of course he became this. Born on January 19, 1992, Lerman established himself early with earnest, emotionally grounded work in films like The Patriot and The Butterfly Effect, but it was his breakout in Percy Jackson and The Olympians, The Lightning Thief, 2010, that turned him into a household name for an entire generation. Nerdy mythological trivia: Lerman actually trained with weapons choreographers and Greek mythology consultants to better ground his portrayal of a demigod, something few blockbuster teen leads even consider. While some child-to-adult transitions stumble, Lerman's career arc feels meticulous. After Percy Jackson, he pursued what many young stars avoid, challenging indie material that demanded depth over spectacle. In The Perks of Being a Wallflower, 2012, he delivered one of the most sensitive portrayals of teenage isolation and connection, earning critical acclaim that transcended his blockbuster roots. Around the same time, he took on gritty, character-driven work with directors like David Gordon Green, Prince Avalanche, and Terrence Malick, Knight of Cups, proving his range extended far beyond franchise comfort zones. Into the late 2010s and early 2020s, Lerman continued mixing mainstream and art house, including roles in Fury, Hunters, and Shutter Island. Off-screen, he became vocal about storytelling craft, often speaking in interviews about the importance of script nuance and emotional truth, a perspective grounded in deep study rather than PR talking points. As of 2025, Logan Lerman isn't just grown up, he's an actor with an unmistakable artistic identity. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't a jaw-dropping physical glow-up or tabloid twist. It's the realization that he matured not by accident but by choice, steadily building a career defined by thoughtful, layered performances that demand attention. Logan Lerman didn't just survive Hollywood's transition years, he turned them into an evolving body of work that feels both brave and endlessly watchable. Do you remember Angus T. Jones? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Angus T. Jones became one of the most recognizable faces on television before his teens as Jake Harper on 2.5 Men, a role he played from age 10 to his early 20s, and that made him one of TV's highest-paid child actors. At the peak of the sitcom's success, he was earning hundreds of thousands per episode and delivering the kind of easygoing charm that made the show a global ratings juggernaut. But unlike many former child stars who keep chasing Hollywood, Angus charted a very different path. In 2012, he began distancing himself from the show on personal and religious grounds, publicly criticizing its humor and content and saying he no longer wanted to be part of it, which contributed to his reduced role and eventual departure. After leaving 2.5 Men, he stepped back from mainstream acting, enrolled at the University of Colorado Boulder, and focused on studies including environmental and Jewish studies. Since then, he has kept a deliberately low profile, largely staying out of Hollywood's spotlight and prioritizing personal interests and a quieter life in Los Angeles. He has made only occasional minor appearances, such as a brief cameo in a Chuck Lorre project in 2023, but hasn't pursued major acting roles like he once did. In casual public sightings, he's been seen sporting a full beard and a much more relaxed look than the boy many fans remember. What makes people really take a deep breath now isn't a dramatic Hollywood makeover, it's how completely he stepped away from the industry that made him famous and chose a path of privacy, education, and introspection instead. Do you remember Jake T. Austin? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Jake T. Austin first became a pop culture fixture as the mischievous Max Russo on Wizards of Waverly Place, earning adoration for his comic timing opposite Selena Gomez and David Henry in one of Disney Channel's biggest hits. Before that, he was already a trusted voice actor, too, originally voicing Diego on Go, Diego, Go, and teaching preschoolers about rainforest rescue through animation. That versatility, live action, and voice work made him one of the most recognizable young performers of his generation. In the years following his Disney breakthrough, Austin took on more mature roles, playing Jesus Foster on The Fosters, a character at the center of one of television's most important family dramas of the 2010s. But unlike many former child stars who either cling to nostalgia or chase fame relentlessly, he chose a much quieter evolution. After a period of steady work through the early 2010s, including voice roles in animated projects like Justice League vs. Teen Titans and Teen Titans: The Judas Contract, he stepped back from frequent acting commitments. Rotten Tomatoes reports suggest part of that shift was introspective. Austin himself has acknowledged being caught up in the Hollywood grind early on and making choices he later reassessed, prompting a deliberate slowdown of his public work. As of 2025, he hasn't vanished, but keeps his profile selective, living between Los Angeles and New York, spending time with his dogs, and maintaining roots outside Hollywood, while occasionally hinting at future creative returns. What makes people really take a deep breath now isn't a dramatic reinvention or a glitzy public comeback. It's the realization that Jake T. Austin didn't just try to outgrow his childhood fame, he stepped off the frenetic fame treadmill entirely, choosing steadiness, privacy, and personal growth over the spotlight that once defined him. Do you remember Josh Peck? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Josh Peck didn't just grow up on your TV screen. He became one of the most genuine success stories to come out of early 2000s Nickelodeon. Born on November 10, 1986, Peck first captured attention with his quick wit and physical comedy on The Amanda Show, but it was Drake and Josh, 2004 to 2007, that cemented him as a household name. As Josh Nichols, he balanced slapstick with surprising emotional nuance, giving him one of the most relatable portrayals of a goofy, good-hearted best friend in kids' TV history. Nerdy sitcom detail. The show's writers intentionally gave him scenes that required precise comic timing and physicality, a trust not every young performer earns. Unlike many former child actors who struggled after youth fame, Peck navigated adulthood with both self-awareness and resilience. As a teenager and young adult, he faced well-documented challenges with weight and self-esteem, openly discussing them long before social media made vulnerability trendy. That honesty laid the groundwork for his reinvention. He transitioned into film with roles in The Whackness, Red Dawn, and most notably Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, where he voiced Eddie the Mammoth and won over a new generation of fans. By the 2010s, Peck turned that versatility into creative control, writing, producing, and starring in projects while maintaining an active digital presence that felt personal rather than manufactured. As of 2025, Josh Peck is a recognizable adult actor and content creator who rarely needs nostalgia to remind people who he is. He hosts podcasts, appears in mainstream film and TV roles, and maintains a candid social media voice that blends humor with real-talk insights about life, family, and fatherhood. What makes people really take a deep breath now isn't a shocking physical transformation. It's seeing someone who struggled publicly as a kid grow into a grounded, self-aware adult who's still funny, still creative, and still evolving on his own terms. That's not just a glow-up, that's growth. Do you remember Liz Carr? Take a deep breath before seeing her now. Liz Carr isn't a former kid star in the Disney or Hollywood sense, but she is one of the most remarkable transformations you might have forgotten to track, because her evolution isn't about a makeover, it's about a lifetime of impact. Born on April 21, 1972 in Port Sunlight, England, Carr rose to wider screen recognition as forensic scientist Clarissa Mullery on the BBC crime drama Silent Witness, a role she played from 2013 through 2020, and that made her a standout example of authentic disability representation on mainstream television. Carr's backstory is as compelling as any scripted arc. Disabled by arthrogryposis multiplexed congenita from age 7 and a wheelchair user since her early teens, she initially trained in law at the University of Nottingham before turning to performance, co-founding sketch comedy groups, taking solo shows to Edinburgh Fringe and Melbourne Festival, and using humor to tackle social taboos about disability. Her comedy isn't just punchlines. It's literature in motion, often dissecting stereotypes with precision that both disarms and educates. But the past few years have seen Carr amplify her voice beyond acting and stand-up. In 2024, she fronted the BBC One documentary, Better Off Dead, a deeply researched, empathetic exploration of assisted dying laws and how they intersect with disability rights, drawing controversy, awards attention, and serious policy discussion across the UK and Canada. As of 2025, Liz Carr is age 52 and more vital than ever, blending screen work, activism, comedy, broadcasting, and public speaking into a portfolio that challenges audiences to rethink accessibility, autonomy, and equality. Seeing someone who has transformed personal adversity into relentless advocacy, creative risk-taking, and global influence, all while refusing to be defined by stereotypes, is what truly inspires people today. Her story is living proof that evolution in public life isn't always about fame. Sometimes it's about reshaping the cultural conversation itself. Do you remember Jeremy Sumpter? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Jeremy Sumpter first flew into pop culture consciousness with a role almost no child actor could handle, the title character in Peter Pan, 2003. Cast at just 13, he carried the live-action blockbuster with physical stunt work and theatrical commitment. No easy feat in a role that demands swordplay, flying scenes, and the weight of an iconic literary legacy. Early reviews acknowledged not just his boyish charm, but also his athletic precision, which helped sell one of Hollywood's most perilous fantasy feats, a mortal actor convincingly flying on screen. Although Peter Pan remains his career's most enduring early imprint, Sumter didn't vanish or fall into the usual child star pitfalls. In the mid-2000s, he transitioned into more grounded work, most notably as quarterback J.D. McCoy on Friday Night Lights, a series revered for its realism and emotional complexity. There, Sumter balanced physical athleticism with layered acting, reflecting the show's bigger commitment to portraying small-town intensity without soap opera simplification. In the years that followed, Sumter stepped back from blockbuster visibility and screen overload, choosing a quieter acting pace with select roles in indie films and occasional television work. He also explored production interests behind the camera, gradually shaping a profile that prioritized creative control over celebrity spectacle. As of 2025, Jeremy Sumter isn't a poster child for a Hollywood comeback. He's more the steady craftsman who avoided both burnout and tabloid derailment. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't a dramatic before and after headline. It's the realization that he's built a life and career far more intentional than many child stars ever manage, quietly balancing art, discipline, and personal evolution on his own terms. Do you remember Moises Arias? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Moises Arias was one of those young performers who seemed to pop up everywhere in the late 2000s. Born on April 18, 1994, he became widely known for playing Rico on Hannah Montana, the mischievous friend whose sarcastic quips and sly schemes were a staple of the show's humor. That role wasn't just comedic relief. Writers expanded his screen time because Arias organically elevated the character with authentic timing and physical comedy, something not every child actor can sustain. He took on roles in films like The Kings of Summer, 2013, an indie coming-of-age favorite praised for its naturalistic performances, and The Stanford Prison Experiment, 2015, where he showed emotional nuance far removed from his Disney persona. One of his most discussed adult roles was in The King of Staten Island, 2020, opposite Pete Davidson, where his grounded performance added heart to a gritty, semi-autobiographical comedy drama. Off-screen, Arias diversified even further. He became active behind the camera, directing short films and producing multimedia projects, and he developed a reputation in the art world for photography and creative curation beyond acting. Rather than chase every Hollywood spotlight, he carved out a niche blending storytelling, visual art, and cultural commentary. By 2025, Moises Arias is no longer primarily the kid from Hannah Montana. He's a multidisciplinary creator, actor, filmmaker, curator, whose journey reflects intention over inertia. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't a dramatic physical metamorphosis or tabloid headline. It's the realization that he evolved with purpose, expanding his artistic identity instead of shrinking it, and that's a transformation worth pausing for. Do you remember Corey Feldman? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Corey Feldman was one of the most recognizable faces of 1980s Hollywood almost before most actors finished high school. Born on July 16, 1971 in Los Angeles, Feldman began working as a toddler and became a defining child star with roles in Gremlins, The Goonies, Stand By Me, and The Lost Boys, films that helped define a generation of movie-going kids. These weren't throwaway parts. Films like Stand By Me are still considered classics, and Feldman's charisma and comic energy made him a reliable presence in both adventure and horror genres. As he matured, Feldman's career took many turns. In addition to his filmography, he released music albums, embraced behind-the-camera producing, and wrote a best-selling memoir, Choreography, which detailed both his rise and the darker side of child stardom he experienced. What makes people take a deep breath now isn't a jaw-dropping makeover. It's seeing someone who symbolized childhood adventure on screens as diverse as The Goonies and Stand By Me, still active, still outspoken, and navigating the complicated legacy of a lifetime in Hollywood almost 40 years after his breakout. His story remains far from simple. It's a blend of nostalgia, candid vulnerability, creative persistence, and ongoing cultural conversation. Do you remember Spencer Breslin? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Spencer Breslin was once one of Hollywood's most familiar child faces, so much so that entire families could pick him out of a lineup. Born on May 18, 1992, he became a go-to kid actor in the late 1990s and early 2000s, appearing in classics like The Kid, 2000, opposite Bruce Willis, The Santa Claus 2 and 3, The Cat in the Hat, and Raising Helen. He wasn't in every movie, but he was in all the movies your parents rented on weekend nights. Directors consistently praised his ability to deliver naturally funny, emotionally grounded performances, even when sharing scenes with Hollywood heavyweights, a rare gift for someone so young. As he approached adulthood, Breslin's public visibility faded, not because he disappeared, but because he chose a path away from relentless celebrity exposure. While many child performers cling tightly to the industry spotlight, Spencer opted for a quieter evolution that prioritized personal growth over perpetual press cycles. He still acted in sporadic projects into his teens and early 20s, but increasingly stepped back to explore passions outside mainstream film and television. By the 2010s and into the 2020s, Breslin had gravitated toward the music world and behind-the-scenes creative work, releasing music that showcased a markedly different artistic identity from his early on-screen persona. Instead of framing his life around kid star turned adult celebrity, he built a creative life on his own terms, writing, performing, and sometimes collaborating in ways that don't require mass media coverage. As of 2025, Spencer Breslin isn't just grown up, he's creatively self-directed. What catches people off guard now isn't a shocking physical glow-up or headline stunt. It's the realization that he matured without needing nostalgia to carry him, choosing a balanced, multifaceted life that blends art, privacy, and personal fulfillment. That's a far rarer outcome than most realize, and one worth pausing over. Do you remember Ty Simpkins? Take a deep breath before looking at him now. Ty Simpkins was one of those kid actors who managed to be in not just one huge franchise, but several, and still build a real career out of it. Born on August 6, 2001, he first caught wide attention with Jurassic World, 2015, playing young Gray Mitchell in one of the highest-grossing films of the decade. Before that, he'd already appeared in Iron Man 3, 2013, as Harley Keener, a role Robert Downey Jr. specifically praised for adding emotional depth to Tony Stark's journey. Nerdy Marvel trivia, Downey improvised several moments with Simpkins on set, trusting the young actor to hold his own in emotionally pivotal scenes. What sets Simpkins apart from many childhood stars is consistency without sensationalism. After his early blockbuster exposure, he continued working steadily, showing up in horror, Insidious, drama, The Other Side of the Door, and television appearances that showcased his range rather than typecasting him. Instead of vanishing or retreating into nostalgia projects, he took roles that allowed steady growth and wider character exploration. As he crossed into adulthood, Simpkins didn't chase headlines. He refined his craft. He attended formal acting training and selectively chose parts that pushed emotional and technical boundaries rather than relying on franchise name value. Throughout the early 2020s, critics began noting his maturity on screen, particularly in indie films and supporting turns that required nuanced vulnerability over blockbuster bravado. By 2025, Ty Simpkins has fully stepped out of the kid in the big movies frame and into a career defined by thoughtful choices and steady craft development. What makes people truly take a deep breath now isn't a dramatic makeover or tabloid twist. It's how naturally he evolved. Simpkins didn't just grow up, he became an actor whose work speaks for itself, proving that transitioning from child roles to adult credibility is possible with patience, skill, and intention. Thanks for watching Past Paradise, where Hollywood legends come home. If you enjoyed today's look into the topic, do you remember her? Take a deep breath before looking at her now. Then don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Got a star or story you want next? Drop it in the comments. Until then, keep the nostalgia alive, only on Past Paradise.